Excuse me, sir. That's not your seat. The words cut through the quiet hum of Liberty Air's first-class cabin, sharp and unwavering. Every head turned, every conversation stopped. Carter Whitman looked up from his worn paperback, his heartbeat quickening as flight attendant Denise Harper towered over him. Her smile professional, but her eyes cold with suspicion. I have my boarding pass right here, Carter stammered, fumbling in his hoodie pocket while 20 pairs of eyes watched his every move. This section is reserved for our premium travelers, Denise continued, her voice rising just enough for nearby passengers to hear. Your attire suggests you may be confused about your seating assignment. Carter's cheeks burned as he finally produced his crumpled boarding pass. Seat 3A, that's this one, right? Denise barely glanced at it. There seems to be a discrepancy. I'll need you to come with me immediately. A businessman across the aisle smirked. Someone discreetly raised a phone to record. Carter stood, hunching his tall frame as if trying to disappear, painfully aware of his faded jeans and simple hoodie among the tailored suits and designer dresses. Please move quickly, sir. You're delaying our departure. As Denise led him forward through the luxury cabin, each step felt like walking through quicksand. 20 years of privilege had never prepared him for this moment, this public questioning of his very right to exist in a space. He didn't know it yet, but in exactly 9 minutes, his father, billionaire tech mogul Franklin Whitman, would learn of this humiliation. And in just under an hour, every passenger on this flight would find themselves caught in the crossfire of what happens when power, wielded carelessly against the wrong person, meets power that refuses to bend. If this story about courage, dignity, and standing up for what's right moved you, subscribe to Life-Changing Tales for more powerful stories that will change how you see the world. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of how they look. Comment below with where you're watching from and whether you've ever been judged unfairly based on your appearance. And share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that true worth isn't measured by outward appearances. Carter Whitman had mastered the art of invisibility long before he stepped onto Liberty Air Flight 227 at 32. The only son of tech titan Franklin Whitman lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Portland, drove a 10-year-old Subaru, and taught literature at a small community college. His students never connected their soft-spoken professor with the Whitman technologies empire that had revolutionized cloud computing and made his father one of the 20 wealthiest individuals on the planet. That separation was deliberate. After graduating from Princeton with honors, Carter had shocked his family by declining his birthright position at Whitman headquarters. I need to know who I am without the name, he'd told his father during their last heated argument. 5 years of minimal contact had followed. Today's flight to San Francisco marked Carter's first reluctant step back toward that world. His grandmother's 90th birthday celebration had required diplomatic negotiations worthy of the United Nations, ending with his agreement to attend just this once. He'd booked his own ticket, refusing his father's offer of the company jet. JFK Airport's Terminal 5 gleamed with polished marble and curved glass, a monument to modern luxury travel. Carter navigated its vast expanse with shoulders slightly hunched, his worn leather messenger bag containing just one change of clothes and a dog-eared copy of Steinbeck. His hoodie, jeans, and untrimmed hair made him practically invisible among the sea of power suits and designer luggage. At the priority boarding gate, the attendant had glanced twice between his face and his first-class ticket before waving him through with barely concealed doubt. Inside the aircraft, Liberty Air's premium cabin showcased what $8,000 could buy: hand-stitched leather seats that reclined to full beds, personal entertainment systems with curved screens, and privacy partitions of brushed aluminum and wood veneer. Flight attendants moved with practiced precision, offering champagne and heated towels to passengers who accepted these luxuries as their due. Carter slid into seat 3A and immediately reached for his book, avoiding eye contact with his neighbor, a silver-haired executive already arranging spreadsheets on her tablet. The scent of sandalwood and vanilla hung in the air. The signature fragrance Liberty Air pumped through first class to enhance the sensory experience. Sir, may I take your jacket? A flight attendant appeared at his elbow. I'm good, thanks. Carter gestured to his hoodie. Just wearing this. Her smile didn't waver, but something in her eyes did. Of course. Beverage before takeoff? Just water, please. 3 rows behind them, Denise Harper watched this exchange with narrowed eyes. At 46, Denise had served 15 years with Liberty Air, rising to lead cabin attendant through unwavering dedication to protocol. Her personnel file contained 27 commendations for exemplary service standards and 3 formal reprimands for excessive rigidity with policy enforcement. Denise believed in order. In a world of chaos and uncertainty, rules provided structure. Exceptions led to disorder. Her father, a military man, had drilled this into her from childhood. Standards exist for a reason. Lower them once and everything falls apart. Liberty Air's management appreciated her exactitude, particularly on premium routes where wealthy passengers expected perfection. Last month, her supervisor had pulled her aside. The customer satisfaction numbers on your flights are the highest in the fleet, Harper. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. What she was doing was maintaining absolute control. Every blanket folded at precisely the same angle. Every champagne pour measured to the exact milliliter. Every passenger treated according to their status level, without deviation or favoritism. As Denise completed her pre-flight checklist, she noticed something that disrupted her mental map of the cabin. The young man in 3A didn't match her expectations for first class. His clothing was casual to the point of sloppiness. His interaction with her colleague lacked the entitlement typical of premium passengers. Most tellingly, he'd refused both champagne and jacket service, 2 essential rituals of the first-class experience. Her mind categorized this as an anomaly requiring investigation. Opening her tablet, she pulled up the manifest and frowned at what she saw. Seat 3A was reserved for C. Whitman, but the passenger code indicated highest tier status, unusual for someone so young and so ordinary-looking. Liberty Air had recently implemented new security protocols after several incidents of seat fraud. As lead attendant, verifying passenger identities fell squarely within her responsibilities. Denise straightened her perfectly pressed uniform and made her way toward row 3, unaware that her commitment to protocol was about to collide catastrophically with the quiet young man who wanted nothing more than to remain unseen. "Mr. Whitman, is it?" Denise's voice carried just enough volume to capture the attention of nearby passengers. Carter glanced up from his book. "Yes? I need to verify your boarding documentation." She extended her hand, palm up. Her gold name badge, D. Harper, lead cabin attendant, caught the overhead lights, flashing with authority. Carter reached into his pocket, producing the same boarding pass he'd shown at the gate. "Here you go." Denise examined it with exaggerated care, turning it over as if expecting to find secret markings. "And may I see your identification as well?" The request hung in the air, unusual after boarding was complete. A few passengers exchanged glances. The silver-haired executive in 3B paused her typing to watch. "Is something wrong?" Carter asked, reaching for his wallet. "Just routine verification." Denise's smile tightened. "Our manifest shows some inconsistencies with your reservation." As Carter handed over his driver's license, Riley Brooks approached from the galley. At 28, Riley was the newest member of the first-class crew, 6 months into her career with Liberty Air. Where Denise saw rules as sacrosanct, Riley viewed them as guidelines that served people, not the other way around. "Need any help, Denise?" Riley asked, her voice warm and neutral. "I'm handling a security protocol." Denise's tone made clear no assistance was required. Carter felt his chest tighten as Denise scrutinized his ID. The cabin seemed to shrink around him, 24 pairs of eyes tracking every movement of this unexpected drama. Among the onlookers, Marcus Lane, the co-pilot, had emerged from the cockpit for his customary pre-flight walkthrough. He lingered by the galley, observing the interaction with professional interest. "Mr. Whitman," Denise continued, "this license shows an Oregon address. Our system indicates you should be registered with our Platinum Global status under a New York residence." "That would be my father," Carter explained quietly. "Franklin Whitman. We share the same first initial. I'm Carter." At the mention of Franklin Whitman's name, a ripple of recognition moved through the cabin. The tech billionaire's reputation extended far beyond his industry. His most recent acquisition, a struggling aerospace company transformed into a commercial space tourism venture, had made global headlines. Denise's expression didn't change, but something hardened in her eyes. "You're claiming to be Franklin Whitman's son?" The question transformed the atmosphere instantly. Carter felt blood rush to his face, acutely aware of how his simple clothes and unkempt appearance contradicted what most people expected from a billionaire's heir. "I'm not claiming anything," he said, working to keep his voice steady. "I'm just explaining why there might be confusion in your system. I booked this ticket myself." From across the aisle, a passenger in a bespoke suit chuckled audibly. "If he's Franklin Whitman's kid, I'm Jeff Bezos." Laughter rippled through the cabin. Carter stared at his hands, knuckles white against his worn jeans. Riley shifted uncomfortably, catching Marcus Lane's eye. The co-pilot gave a subtle head tilt, suggesting intervention might be warranted. But before either could act, Denise made her decision. "Mr. Whitman, if that is indeed your name, our verification protocols require further authentication when identification discrepancies arise." She handed back his license but kept his boarding pass. "Please come with me to the flight deck where we can resolve this matter privately." "Is that really necessary?" Carter asked. "I can show you my credit card that paid for the ticket." Liberty Air takes security very seriously. Denise's voice rose slightly. "Especially in our premium cabins, where high-profile clients expect discretion and protection. If this is merely a misunderstanding, it can be cleared up quickly." A passenger in row 2 had begun filming with his phone. Another tapped rapidly on her device, presumably sharing the unfolding scene on social media. Marcus stepped forward. "Perhaps I can assist." "Captain Mitchell requested no disruptions during pre-flight checks," Denise interrupted, invoking the highest authority available. "I'll handle this according to procedure." Riley tried once more. "Denise, I could verify the manifest again while you—" "That won't be necessary." Denise's tone left no room for debate. "Mr. Whitman, please follow me now." Carter stood, acutely aware of his height, 6'3", making him tower awkwardly over Denise's 5'5" frame. He hunched slightly, a lifetime habit of trying to appear smaller, less noticeable. "Can I bring my bag?" he asked. "Leave it. Security protocol." Denise gestured toward the front of the plane. As Carter followed her down the aisle, whispers trailed in their wake. "Clearly doesn't belong here. Scamming an upgrade. Franklin Whitman's son wouldn't dress like that." Near the galley, an older gentleman in an impeccable suit leaned into the aisle. "Young man," he called, just loud enough for Carter to hear. "Next time, research your false identity better. I've met Franklin's son at the Metropolitan Club. He's half your age." Carter didn't correct him, didn't explain that the son the man had met was likely Franklin's 12-year-old nephew, who often accompanied him to social functions. The explanation would only prolong this nightmare. At the front of the cabin, Denise knocked sharply on the cockpit door. "Security verification required," she announced into the intercom. Riley watched from the galley, anxiety evident in her eyes. She'd witnessed Denise's protocol enforcement before, usually with passengers who requested too many drinks or complained too loudly. But this felt different. The young man in the hoodie hadn't done anything disruptive. He simply didn't fit Denise's mental image of someone who belonged in first class. The cockpit door opened, revealing Captain Mitchell's questioning face. "Identity verification necessary for 3A, Denise explained. "Possible fraudulent boarding." Captain Mitchell frowned. "We're 20 minutes from departure, which is why prompt resolution is essential." Denise maintained her position. Marcus stepped forward. "Captain, I can handle—" "No," the captain cut him off. "We need you completing the flight checks. Miss Harper, use the jump seat area for your verification, but make it quick." Carter stood frozen, mortification washing over him in waves. What had begun as a simple case of mistaken identity was morphing into something that felt increasingly like public accusation. As Denise led him into the narrow space just outside the cockpit, Carter caught Riley's eye. Her expression conveyed a silent apology. Behind her, passengers in the first 3 rows craned their necks to watch, their faces displaying emotions ranging from concern to entertainment to outright disdain. The cabin door closed behind them with a definitive click. In the confined space with nowhere to retreat, Carter faced his accuser. A woman whose certainty in her own rightness had transformed a routine flight into a humiliating spectacle. And still, the plane remained firmly on the ground. The jump seat area outside the cockpit offered no privacy, merely the illusion of it. The narrow space designed for crew members during takeoff and landing forced Carter to stand awkwardly against the wall while Denise positioned herself between him and any possible exit. "Let's be direct, Mr. Whitman." Denise's voice dropped to a clipped whisper. "Your appearance and behavior are inconsistent with our passenger profile data." "My appearance?" Carter repeated, the words hitting like physical blows. "Liberty Air maintains detailed records on our premium travelers, particularly those connected to high-profile individuals. The system flags anomalies for security reasons." She tapped her tablet. "Franklin Whitman's family members travel exclusively via private aviation or in our chairman's circle. They don't book standard first-class tickets online." Carter exhaled slowly. "My father and I aren't close. I booked this ticket myself, with my own money, to attend my grandmother's birthday." "Your father?" Denise's eyebrows rose slightly, the quotation marks audible in her tone. Through the narrow opening to the main cabin, Carter could see passengers leaning into the aisle, phones raised. The distance didn't prevent their recording devices from capturing every word, every expression. His humiliation was becoming content. Real-time entertainment streamed to unknown audiences. Beyond the gallery, Riley hovered, her face a mask of professional concern, barely concealing genuine alarm. Her eyes met Carter's briefly, conveying silent support that somehow made everything worse. Pity from a stranger was the final confirmation of how pathetic this situation had become. "Yes, my father," Carter repeated. A lifetime of complicated emotions surged through him. Resentment at having to explain his family dynamics to a stranger, shame at being questioned about his identity, anger at a world that judged worth by appearance. "Look, call the airline's corporate office. They can verify." "That's exactly what I intend to do," Denise cut him off. "But understand that falsely claiming relation to a high-profile individual constitutes identity fraud under aviation security regulations." The accusation hung in the air between them. Carter felt his throat constrict, the familiar tightness that had plagued him since childhood, whenever confrontation arose. His therapist had a name for it: anxiety response triggered by emotional invalidation. In simple terms, the physical manifestation of being told his reality wasn't real. "I'm not claiming anything," he managed, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'm telling you who I am." Behind Denise, the cockpit door cracked open. Captain Mitchell leaned out, irritation evident on his weathered face. "What's the status here? We're approaching departure window." "Verification in progress, Captain," Denise replied without turning. "Possible security breach." The words security breach rippled through the cabin. Passengers exchanged alarmed glances. More phones appeared, recording the unfolding drama. Carter closed his eyes briefly. Every second prolonged this nightmare. Each moment expanded the audience witnessing his humiliation. He'd spent his adult life deliberately avoiding the spotlight his last name attracted, choosing teaching over tech, anonymity over affluence. Now, ironically, his attempt to remain invisible had made him the center of unwanted attention. "I can show you my university ID," he offered, reaching slowly toward his pocket. "I teach English literature at Pacific Northwest Community College." Denise stepped back. "Keep your hands visible, please." The instruction, delivered in the tone one might use with a potential threat, sent a fresh wave of witnesses into their phones. Someone in first class actually gasped. Riley moved closer to the galley entrance. "Denise, I've checked the system again. There might be a technical explanation." "Not now," Denise said sharply. To Carter, she continued. "A community college professor purchasing an $8,000 first-class ticket doesn't align with expected behavioral patterns." Carter felt something shift inside him, a quiet rage breaking through years of careful restraint. And what exactly is the expected behavioral pattern for someone in first class? Designer clothes? Arrogance? Treating your staff like servants? His voice had risen enough that passengers in the first few rows clearly heard every word. A few nodded in apparent agreement. Others frowned at what they perceived as disrespect toward crew authority. The silver-haired executive from seat 3B had risen, phone in hand, capturing the exchange in high definition. "This is going straight to my followers," she announced to no one in particular. Hashtag airline drama, hashtag class warfare. In the galley, Marcus Lane checked his watch with growing concern. "We're going to miss our departure slot if this continues," he murmured to Riley. "It's getting out of hand," Riley whispered back. "He doesn't seem like someone trying to scam an upgrade." "Did you check his reservation details?" "System shows he paid full fare with his own credit card," Marcus confirmed. "Whatever Denise thinks is happening, the payment cleared legitimately." Inside the cramped jump seat area, Denise had switched tactics. "Mr. Whitman, I'm going to need to contact airline security to verify your documentation. This will require deplaning while we investigate." "Deplaning?" Carter's composure finally fractured. "You're removing me from a flight I paid for because I don't look rich enough to be in first class?" The accusation, spoken loudly enough for everyone to hear, created an immediate divide among the passengers. Some appeared scandalized by the suggestion of class prejudice. Others seemed to side with Denise's caution. A distinguished gentleman in row 1 stood up. "Excuse me, but this is absurd. I've been flying first class for 30 years and I've never seen someone questioned like this for their appearance." "Sir, please remain seated," Denise called over her shoulder. "I will not," the man replied. "Young man, what's your father's name again?" "Franklin Whitman," Carter answered, his voice tight with emotion. The gentleman nodded. "Franklin Whitman of Whitman Technologies? I serve on a foundation board with him. Who's your grandmother?" "Eleanor Whitman. Her 90th birthday is this weekend in San Francisco." The man pulled out his phone. "That settles it. I'm texting Franklin right now. We can clear this up in 2 minutes." Denise's face flushed. "Sir, please don't interfere with security protocols." "These aren't security protocols," the man interrupted. "This is harassment." The word ricocheted through the cabin, captured on dozens of devices, and instantly transmitted across social platforms. Airline harassment began trending before the message even reached Franklin Whitman's phone. Captain Mitchell emerged fully from the cockpit, his expression grave. "What's happening out here? We're 7 minutes past our departure slot." "Sir," Denise began, "I'm following procedure for identity verification when..." A flight attendant rushed up from economy. "Captain, passengers are posting videos online. It's already on Twitter and Instagram. Liberty Air is getting tagged thousands of times." The captain's face darkened. "Ms. Harper, resolve this immediately." "I'm trying to ensure security compliance," Denise insisted. "By publicly humiliating a paying passenger?" Riley finally stepped forward, her professional caution giving way to moral obligation. "I verified his reservation. Payment cleared through normal channels." Carter stood frozen in the middle of this escalating chaos, a reluctant focal point of a situation spiraling beyond anyone's control. His phone buzzed in his pocket, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Text messages flooding in as the online world discovered his identity before the flight crew would accept it. The gentleman from row 1 held up his phone triumphantly. "Franklin Whitman just confirmed this is indeed his son Carter. He's contacting Liberty Air's CEO directly." The color drained from Denise's face as the implication sank in. The captain's expression shifted from irritation to alarm. "Everyone, please return to your seats," he ordered. "We need to sort this out quickly." But it was too late. The damage was done. What had begun as a routine verification had transformed into a viral moment of public shame, captured, shared, and multiplied across the digital landscape. And all because a young man in a hoodie didn't fit someone's idea of first class. Captain Mitchell retreated to the cockpit, closing the door with controlled precision that betrayed his rising frustration. 2 minutes later, his voice crackled more through the cabin speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Due to an ongoing administrative matter, our departure will be delayed. We're working to resolve this situation as quickly as possible. Flight attendants, please remain at your stations." A collective groan swept through the cabin. Business people checked watches and calendars. Families with connections worried aloud about making their next flights. First-class passengers, accustomed to priority treatment, appeared particularly displeased. "This is outrageous," muttered a man in an Italian suit. I have a meeting in San Francisco in 4 hours. My driver's already waiting at SFO, complained another. Carter returned to his seat, acutely aware of the stares following his every movement. The silver-haired executive in 3B didn't bother to hide her continued recording. For my followers, she explained without apology, you're trending, you know. Had first-class fraud is at 12,000 mentions already. Carter stared straight ahead, his face burning. The hashtag was a knife twist, confirming his worst fears about how the world perceived him. Not as someone who rejected privilege, but as someone pretending to belong where he didn't. Across the aisle, the gentleman who had texted Franklin leaned over. Alexander Reeves, he introduced himself quietly. Your father and I worked together on the Clean Energy Initiative. I apologize for this absurd situation. Thank you, Carter managed, his voice barely audible. Corporate policy gone mad, Alexander continued. I've seen it before. Frontline staff so terrified of making exceptions that they create disasters instead. At the front of the cabin, Denise had disappeared into the galley. Riley moved efficiently through the aisle, offering drinks and apologies in equal measure. We're very sorry for the delay, she repeated to each row. We should be underway shortly. When she reached Carter, her professional smile softened with genuine remorse. I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitman. Can I bring you anything while we wait? The kindness, simple human decency after such public degradation nearly broke him. Just water, please. Of course, Riley hesitated. For what it's worth, I tried to tell them. It's fine, Carter cut her off gently. Not your fault. Outside the aircraft windows, the busy tarmac operations continued. Other planes taxied and departed while Liberty Air Flight 227 remained motionless at the gate, a multi-million-dollar machine rendered useless by human obstinance. Carter's phone buzzed again. Anonymous calls and messages had been flowing in since the incident began trending. Social media sleuths who'd uncovered his number through university directories or alumni databases. He ignored them all. Then a text from an unlisted number caught his attention. Carter, it's Dad. Call me immediately. 2112-7832. Carter stared at the message, his heart racing. 5 years of minimal contact, holiday cards, obligatory birthday calls, the occasional email about family matters. Now this. The situation had escalated to a level that had pierced even Franklin Whitman's carefully constructed barriers around his personal life. As Carter contemplated his response, the cabin intercom activated again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Mitchell. I've just been informed that we've lost our departure window. Air traffic control has now rescheduled us for departure in approximately 90 minutes. We understand this is inconvenient, and we apologize for the delay. The announcement unleashed a wave of outrage throughout the cabin. A businessman in row 2 threw his hands up. This is completely unacceptable. A woman near the window turned directly to Carter. This is because of you, isn't it? Whatever scam you're running is delaying all of us. Alexander Reeves stood up. That's quite enough. This young man is the victim here, not the cause. Easy for you to say, snapped another passenger. Some of us have actual responsibilities waiting in San Francisco. The atmosphere in the cabin deteriorated rapidly. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, attempting to calm increasingly hostile passengers. Captain Mitchell emerged from the cockpit, his expression grim as he conferred with crew members at the galley. Carter's phone buzzed again. Another message from his father. Why aren't you answering? This situation is escalating. Liberty Air CEO just called me. With trembling fingers, Carter typed back, What should I do? The response came immediately. Stay where you are. Say nothing to anyone. I'm handling this. The directive, so characteristic of his father's controlling approach, paradoxically brought Carter a moment of calm. Franklin Whitman's involvement meant resources, influence, and resolution. For all their personal differences, his father's business efficiency was legendary. Outside the cabin windows, ground crew vehicles had gathered around the aircraft. An unusual sight for a routine departure delay. Airport personnel in high-visibility vests conferred with each other, occasionally glancing toward the plane. Something's happening, Alexander observed quietly. The cabin door opened, revealing the gate agent accompanied by 2 airline representatives in corporate attire. They huddled with Captain Mitchell and Denise at the front of the cabin, voices low but body language tense. Riley approached with Carter's water. "Corporate is involved now," she whispered as she placed the glass on his tray table. "The videos hit their PR team. Over 50,000 views in 30 minutes. Carter nodded numbly. The water remained untouched. Throughout the cabin, passengers refreshed social media feeds, adding fuel to the digital firestorm with their own updates and commentary. Liberty Air holding entire flight hostage, hashtag customer service fail, first-class passenger profiled for wearing hoodie, hashtag flying while casualness, Billionaire's son humiliated by flight crew, hashtag rich kid problems. The narrative fragmenting and multiplying with each new post, each perspective adding layers to a story that had begun with a simple case of mistaken assumptions. At the front of the cabin, the corporate representatives finished their discussion with the captain. One of them approached Denise with a tablet, showing her something that caused her face to pale visibly. She glanced toward Carter, her expression unreadable. Carter's phone lit up again, a call this time from his father's number. He hesitated, then silenced it. Whatever Franklin wanted to say could wait. This public spectacle had already stripped away too much of his privacy, his dignity. Answering a call now would only add to the performance aspect of his humiliation. Outside, more ground personnel gathered. A fuel truck positioned itself near the wing, suggesting preparation for an extended delay. The captain returned to the cabin microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that due to ongoing circumstances, we are required to return to the gate. All passengers will need to deplane while we address certain administrative matters." A roar of disapproval rose from every section. Business travelers shouted about missed meetings. Families with children groaned at the prospect of more waiting. First-class passengers demanded immediate explanations and compensation. "This is absolutely unacceptable," shouted someone from the back. "I'm never flying Liberty Air again," called another voice. As the anger rose like a tide around him, Carter sat perfectly still, a quiet eye in the middle of a storm he never intended to create. His father's texts continued to arrive in rapid succession. "Liberty Air executives are scrambling. Their legal team is involved now. Do not leave the airport under any circumstances. I'm 15 minutes from JFK." The last message made Carter's stomach drop. Franklin Whitman was coming personally, the nuclear option in his father's arsenal of responses. Whatever happened next would change everything. The plane began its slow roll back to the terminal, carrying its cargo of frustrated passengers, embarrassed crew members, and one reluctant catalyst whose simple desire for anonymity had ironically thrust him into the spotlight of a gathering media storm. The terminal bustled with activity as passengers from Flight 227 crowded the gate area. Airline representatives distributed food vouchers and apologetic smiles, both received with equal disdain. Carter found an isolated corner, away from the accusing glances and whispered comments. His phone rang again, his father's number. This time he answered. "Carter." Franklin Whitman's voice carried the crisp authority that had built a tech empire from nothing. No greeting, no preamble. "Hi, Dad. I'm receiving real-time updates about this situation. Tell me exactly what happened." Carter described the events in quiet, measured tones. Denise's initial suspicion, the public questioning, the escalation to the cockpit, the videos now spreading across the internet. Franklin listened without interruption. In the background, Carter heard the distinctive sounds of a luxury car moving at speed. His father's Bentley, most likely, with his longtime driver, Jerome, at the wheel. "They questioned your identity because you don't look the part," Franklin finally said. Not a question, a statement of fact, delivered with cold precision. "Basically, yes. And they've now delayed an entire commercial flight and deplaned all passengers because someone in a hoodie claimed to be my son." Carter winced. "I never claimed anything. I just told them who I am." A beat of silence passed between them. 5 years of distance condensed into seconds of static. "Are you hurt?" Franklin asked, his voice shifting almost imperceptibly. The question caught Carter off guard. His father rarely inquired about his emotional state. "No, just embarrassed. Humiliated, actually." "Humiliation is unacceptable." Franklin's tone hardened. "The Whitman name stands for excellence, integrity, and respect. If Liberty Air cannot recognize those values, they will be educated. Before Carter could respond, Franklin continued, I've already spoken with Gregory Peters. Carter blinked in surprise. Gregory Peters was Liberty Air's CEO. You called the CEO directly? Of course not, Franklin replied. He called me. Apparently, their social media monitoring flagged this incident as a priority corporate crisis when your name started trending. Peters was hoping to contain the situation before I became aware of it. Through the terminal windows, Carter noticed a sleek, black Bentley pull up to the curb outside, ignoring the protests of traffic officials. You're here, he said unnecessarily. Stay where you are. I'm coming to you. Franklin ended the call. At the airline customer service desk, the mood had shifted from apology to panic. Staff members whispered urgently to each other, glancing repeatedly at tablets displaying news feeds and social media analytics. Over 300,000 views and climbing, one agent murmured to another. The hashtags are everywhere. Corporate is freaking out, her colleague replied. Executive team on emergency conference call. Is that him? The son? The first agent nodded discreetly toward Carter. Their conversation halted abruptly as the terminal doors slid open, revealing Franklin Whitman. At 62, he commanded attention without effort, 6 feet of immaculate tailoring and unwavering purpose. His silver hair, piercing blue eyes, and perfect posture projected authority that needed no announcement. 2 security personnel flanked him, along with a woman carrying multiple devices who Carter recognized as his father's communications director. Behind them, a small crowd of journalists had gathered, sensing a story unfolding. Franklin moved directly to Carter, placing a hand on his shoulder, a rare physical gesture that spoke volumes. Are you all right? Carter nodded, suddenly feeling like a child again despite his 32 years. I'm fine. This is completely unnecessary. On the contrary, Franklin replied, his voice low but intense. This is absolutely necessary. He turned toward the growing crowd of onlookers, many recording with their phones. Liberty Air staff scrambled to intercept him, but Franklin Whitman was not a man accustomed to being delayed. Mr. Whitman, began a flustered customer service manager, we're so terribly sorry for this misunderstanding. We're preparing a private lounge for you and your son and arranging immediate transportation to San Francisco on our next available flight. Franklin's expression remained impassive. That won't be necessary. My jet is being prepared as we speak. Of course, sir. Again, we deeply regret. Save your regrets for your press statement. Franklin cut him off. You'll need them. The communications director stepped forward, tablet in hand. Mr. Whitman, we're ready whenever you are. Franklin nodded, then turned to address the gathering crowd directly. His voice, honed through decades of keynote speeches and board meetings, carried effortlessly through the terminal. Today, my son was subjected to public humiliation by Liberty Air staff, who judged his worth by his appearance rather than his character. This incident reflects not just poor customer service, but a fundamental failure of human decency. Passengers from Flight 227 pressed closer, many recording his words. Journalists scribbled notes or positioned microphones. Carter Whitman has chosen to live modestly, to teach literature, to measure his life by contribution rather than consumption. These are values I respect, even when they differ from my own choices. Franklin paused, his gaze sweeping across the rapt audience. Liberty Air's treatment of my son, questioning his identity, escorting him to the cockpit like a criminal, grounding an entire flight rather than acknowledging a mistake, demonstrates a culture where protocol has replaced compassion, where assumptions override facts, and where profit margins matter more than people. Behind him, Liberty Air executives who had rushed to the terminal exchanged alarmed glances. I call upon Liberty Air to examine not just this incident, but the systemic issues it represents. When did we decide that first class meant conforming to a visual stereotype? When did customer verification become customer humiliation? Franklin's communications director held up her tablet, displaying real-time analytics. The hashtags, hashtag Liberty Air fail and hashtag Whitman response were exploding across platforms. Live streams of Franklin's impromptu speech had already drawn hundreds of thousands of viewers. To the passengers inconvenienced by this situation, I extend my personal apology. My family's foundation will provide each of you with vouchers for future travel on any airline except Liberty Air. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. And to Liberty Air, this incident will cost you far more than the price of these vouchers. It will cost you the trust of every person who values being treated with dignity, regardless of their appearance. Franklin turned to the Liberty Air executives, now huddled in consultation with their legal team. I expect a public acknowledgement of this failure, comprehensive retraining of your staff, and a clear demonstration that meaningful changes have been implemented. Until then, Whitman Technologies and all its subsidiaries will suspend our corporate account with your airline, representing approximately $12 million in annual revenue. The executives' faces drained of color. Franklin placed his hand on Carter's shoulder again. Now, if you'll excuse us, my son and I have a birthday celebration to attend. As they walked toward the exit, Carter leaned closer to his father. That was excessive, he whispered. It was proportionate, Franklin replied. Some lessons require financial consequences to be properly absorbed. Outside, social media continued its relentless amplification. Videos of Denise confronting Carter played alongside clips of Franklin's speech, creating a narrative of injustice and accountability that resonated far beyond the airline industry. A tech blogger in Seattle posted, "Franklin Whitman just showed every corporation how to respond when your family is mistreated. Take notes." A business professor in London tweeted, "Case study in crisis management happening live. Liberty Air versus Whitman, classic example of values-based leadership." Entertainment sites focused on the human drama. Billionaire defends estranged son in airport showdown. By the time Franklin's private jet took off from JFK, carrying both Whitmans to San Francisco, #Whitman response had been mentioned over 2 million times. Liberty Air's stock had dropped 8 points in after-hours trading. 3 major corporate clients had publicly announced reviews of their travel contracts, and Carter, watching his father field calls from board members and industry leaders, realized that for all their differences, he had witnessed something remarkable today. The raw, unfiltered power of a parent's protection, applied with the precision of a master strategist. The humiliation hadn't disappeared, but it had been answered. Inside Liberty Air's JFK Operations Center, chaos reigned. Emergency meetings overlapped with crisis calls. Public relations specialists drafted statements, then discarded them as the situation evolved too rapidly for measured responses. Social media teams watched in horror as metrics climbed. 3 million mentions, 4 million, 5 million. "This is unprecedented," muttered the communications director, staring at analytics displaying real-time damage. "We're losing approximately $8,000 in bookings every minute." At the center of the storm sat Denise Harper, still in her perfect uniform, her face ashen as she reviewed footage of herself confronting Carter Whitman. The recording, captured by a passenger and now playing on news networks globally, showed her leading Carter to the cockpit, her expression stern, his humiliation evident. "I followed protocol," she whispered, more to herself than to the HR representative seated across from her. The manifest showed a discrepancy. "I was doing my job." "What exactly did the manifest show?" asked Kevin Chen, Liberty Air's chief operating officer, who had flown in from headquarters specifically for this crisis. Before Denise could answer, a knock interrupted them. Riley Brooks entered, clutching a tablet and looking nervous but determined. "Excuse me, sir. I have information relevant to this situation." Kevin motioned her in. "Go ahead." Riley took a deep breath. "I reviewed the manifest immediately after Ms. Harper first approached Mr. Whitman. There was no discrepancy, as claimed." The room fell silent. "Explain," Kevin demanded. "The system showed Carter Whitman booked in seat 3A, paid with his personal credit card. The confusion arose because his name triggered a VIP flag, not because anything was wrong." Riley turned to Denise. "The VIP flag appears identical to the security alert notification in our tablet interface. They're both highlighted in yellow, but they mean completely different things." Denise's face drained of remaining color. "That's not possible. I saw an alert." "You saw a highlight," Riley corrected gently. "The system was flagging him as a potential VIP due to his last name, not as a security concern." She tapped her tablet, displaying the interface. "See? VIP alerts and security alerts use the same highlighting color, but different icons. It's a design flaw in the new system rollout. Kevin leaned forward, examining the screen. And you verified this during the incident? Yes, sir. I tried to tell Ms. Harper, but by then things had already, Riley faltered. Escalated, Kevin finished flatly. Denise stared at the tablet, recognition dawning in her eyes. The subtle difference between icons, a star for VIP status, a flag for security concerns, was clear now, but in the moment, she had seen what she expected to see. A passenger who didn't fit her mental image of first class must be there by mistake or deception. I misinterpreted the alert, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Outside the operations center, Liberty Air's fragile attempts at damage control collapsed under the weight of public scrutiny. The CEO's initial statement, a carefully worded acknowledgement of a regrettable customer service incident, was immediately met with derision online. Regrettable incident, some publicly humiliating a passenger based on how he dressed. Double better. Liberty Air, where your dignity depends on your outfit. Chad, never flying with them. Financial analysts weighed in on business networks. Liberty Air stock down 12% and falling. This incident strikes at the heart of their premium brand positioning. High-paying customers need to feel respected, not policed. Customer service lines jammed with cancellations. Corporate clients contacted their account managers demanding explanations. Competitors subtly capitalized on the moment. One airline tweeting, "At Horizon Airlines, we care about your character, not your clothes." Shahan, fly with dignity. Back in the operations center, Kevin's phone buzzed with an urgent message. He read it silently, then addressed the room. The Whitman Technologies travel account suspension has triggered a cascade effect. 3 more Fortune 500 companies have paused their business with us pending review. He turned to Denise. Do you understand the magnitude of what has happened here? Denise nodded slowly, the full weight of her actions settling upon her shoulders. What had begun as adherence to protocol, her professional strength for 15 years, had transformed into a catastrophic error in judgment that threatened the airline's reputation and financial stability. I never meant to humiliate him, she said softly. I truly believed I was following security procedures. Intent doesn't matter now, Kevin replied. Perception is reality in crisis management. Riley shifted uncomfortably. Sir, there's something else. The manifest confusion isn't isolated. I've found similar interface issues reported by other crew members over the past month. Ever since the system update, Kevin's expression darkened. You're saying this could have happened to any crew member? Potentially, yes. The training on the new interface was minimal. Just a 15-minute video. Several flight attendants flagged concerns about the similar highlighting schemes, but IT classified it as a low-priority cosmetic issue. This revelation shifted the atmosphere in the room. What had appeared to be one employee's misjudgment now revealed systemic flaws. Inadequate training, ignored warnings, prioritization of technology rollout over usability. Outside the operations center, public opinion continued its relentless evolution. Initial mockery of rich kid problems had transformed into deeper discussions about human dignity, corporate responsibility, and the hidden biases that shaped everyday interactions. A prominent civil rights attorney posted a thoughtful analysis. The Carter Whitman incident exemplifies how appearance-based discrimination operates in modern America. Liberty Air must address not just this incident, but the cultural assumptions that made it possible. Psychology professors, diversity consultants, and social commentators dissected the video footage, identifying moments where assumptions overpowered evidence, where protocol superseded humanity. Within Liberty Air's executive offices, the crisis team expanded as the narrative moved beyond control. PR experts drafted their fourth statement of the day, while legal advisors calculated potential liability. We need to get ahead of this, insisted the chief marketing officer. Full apology, concrete action steps, significant compensation. The damage extends beyond one passenger now, countered the legal director. We're looking at potential class action exposure from all passengers on that flight, not to mention brand reputation loss estimated at $40 to $50 million. Kevin Chen rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure of decisions that would define Liberty Air's future. Where is Denise now? In the break room, an assistant replied. She's not doing well. In that quiet space, away from the corporate machinery trying to contain the crisis she had triggered, Denise Harper sat alone. The proud professional who had started her day with absolute certainty now questioned every judgment call of her 15-year career. On the small television mounted in the corner, she watched Franklin Whitman's measured, powerful condemnation replay yet again. But it wasn't his words that cut deepest. It was the brief glimpse of Carter's face beside him, still bearing the shadow of humiliation she had caused. Her phone vibrated with a message from her daughter. "Mom, are you okay? Your name is trending. People are saying awful things." Denise closed her eyes, finally understanding something essential. Rules without compassion weren't professionalism. They were cruelty dressed in protocol's clothing. And the cost of that lesson would be paid not just by her, but by an entire company that had forgotten its purpose was people, not procedures. 3 weeks after the incident, Carter Whitman stood before his literature class at Pacific Northwest Community College. His students watched him with newfound curiosity, their formerly anonymous professor now recognized from countless news segments and social media discussions. "Today we're examining Kafka's Metamorphosis," Carter began, "a story about transformation and how society responds to those who don't conform to expectations." A knowing smile passed between several students. The parallel wasn't subtle. After class, Carter checked his phone, a text from his father. "Quarterly review meeting with Billionaire tomorrow. Thought you might want to attend." Carter paused, considering the invitation. The past 3 weeks had transformed more than just Billionaire's policies. They had reshaped his relationship with Franklin in ways neither had anticipated. The private jet flight to San Francisco following the incident had broken 5 years of carefully maintained distance. Sitting across from each other in leather seats, father and son had finally spoken honestly. "Why did you defend me so publicly?" Carter had asked. "You've always valued privacy." Franklin considered the question. "When Alexander Reeves called me, he described watching you stand alone while being questioned about your identity, your right to occupy the space you'd rightfully purchased." His voice had grown unusually reflective. "It reminded me of something my father once told me. A man's worth isn't in his wallet, but in his character." "Grandpa said that?" Carter was surprised. His grandfather had been a stern, practical factory foreman. "Yes, the day I told him I was dropping out of college to start my first company." Franklin smiled slightly. He thought I was making a terrible mistake, but he respected my right to make it. The conversation had shifted then, moving beyond the incident to the unspoken tension between them. Carter's rejection of wealth, Franklin's immersion in it. "I never understood why you chose to live as you do," Franklin admitted. "I took it as criticism of everything I built." "It wasn't criticism," Carter replied. "It was self-preservation. I needed to know who I was without the Whitman name opening every door." For the first time in years, they had truly listened to each other, not solving every difference, but acknowledging them with newfound respect. Now, 3 weeks later, Carter typed his response. "I'll be there." Billionaire's headquarters occupied a gleaming tower in downtown Chicago. The boardroom on the 58th floor offered panoramic views of Lake Michigan, though today nobody admired the scenery. Executives sat tensely around a massive table as Franklin and Carter Whitman entered. Gregory Peters, Billionaire's CEO, rose immediately. "Mr. Whitman, both Mr. Whitmans, thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Franklin nodded curtly. "Your quarterly update was due. We're here to evaluate whether your reforms merit the restoration of our corporate account." Carter scanned the room, surprised to see Denise Harper seated at the far end, alongside Riley Brooks. Denise met his gaze briefly before looking down. Gregory gestured to a prepared presentation. "Over the past 3 weeks, Billionaire has implemented comprehensive changes to address the failures exposed by the incident involving Mr. Carter Whitman. The presentation detailed new training protocols, revised interface design for the crew tablets, and updated verification procedures that emphasize customer dignity over rigid compliance. Our most significant change," Gregory continued, "has been the creation of a customer dignity officer position reporting directly to the board. Riley Brooks has been appointed to this role." Riley smiled nervously at Carter. We've already retrained over 40% of our cabin crew, with all staff to complete the new program by month's end. Franklin remained impassive. Impressive start, but ultimately meaningless without cultural change. Gregory nodded, which is why we've asked Ms. Harper to address you directly. Denise stood, composure intact despite the obvious discomfort. Mr. Whitman, Carter, I want to apologize personally for my actions that day. I violated the fundamental trust passengers place in us when they choose our airline. She continued, voice steady. I've spent 15 years believing that perfect adherence to rules made me excellent at my job. The incident with you forced me to confront an uncomfortable truth. I had substituted rigidity for judgment, protocol for humanity. Carter listened, surprised by her candor. I'm now helping develop our new training curriculum, sharing my experience as a warning about what happens when we forget the humans behind the procedures. She paused. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that your humiliation has become a powerful teaching tool that will prevent others from experiencing similar treatment. Carter hadn't expected this moment, confronting the person who had caused his public shame, now transformed by the experience as profoundly as he had been. Thank you for your honesty, he replied simply. The meeting continued with detailed metrics, complaint reductions, satisfaction improvements, policy adjustments. But the human element, Denise's accountability, Riley's promotion, the executive's evident commitment to change, spoke more powerfully than any statistic. As they left the building, Franklin turned to Carter. What do you think? I think they're actually changing, not just damage controlling. Franklin nodded. I agree. I'll restore the corporate account, with quarterly reviews continuing for the first year. Carter smiled. His father's business instincts remained sharp as ever. The impact of the Liberty Air incident, as it became known in business schools and customer service training programs, extended far beyond one airline. Within 6 months, industry publications documented the Whitman effect, a fundamental shift in how companies approached customer verification and service standards. 3 major airlines revised their first-class passenger protocols, eliminating appearance-based assumptions from their training. Technology companies redesigned alert systems to prevent similar interface confusion. Customer service departments across industries implemented dignity-first approaches that balanced security needs with respect for individual worth. Franklin leveraged the moment strategically, funding a nonprofit institute dedicated to ethical customer service practices. The Whitman Initiative for Consumer Dignity provided scholarships for service industry workers and consulted with companies seeking to improve their customer interaction models. For Carter, the transformation was deeply personal. His quiet anonymity had been permanently disrupted, but in its place came unexpected opportunities. His perspective on the incident, articulated in a thoughtful essay published in The Atlantic, resonated with readers navigating their own complicated relationships with privilege, appearance, and identity. When Pacific Northwest Community College offered him the chance to develop a new course examining how social media transforms private moments into public discourse, he accepted enthusiastically. His class, Digital Ethics and Modern Judgment, became the most requested offering in the humanities department. 6 months after the incident, Carter found himself addressing a conference on corporate ethics. Standing at the podium, he looked out at hundreds of executives eager to avoid becoming the next Liberty Air. The moment Denise Harper questioned my right to sit in seat 3A, she wasn't simply following protocol, Carter explained. She was enforcing an unwritten code about who belongs in premium spaces. We all carry these codes, assumptions about who deserves respect based on appearance, speech, or background. He continued, the true lesson isn't about airline policies or social media crises. It's about remembering that dignity shouldn't be a premium product, available only to those who look the part. It's the baseline human right we all deserve regardless of what we wear, how we speak, or where we sit. The audience's standing ovation surprised him. These corporate leaders responding to a message about valuing humanity over hierarchy. Later that evening, Carter called his father. How did it go? Franklin asked. Surprisingly well. They seemed to actually listen. Of course they did. You have something valuable to say. Franklin paused. Your grandmother asked if you're coming for Thanksgiving this year. Carter smiled. I'll be there. But I'm still flying commercial. Still proving your point? Franklin's tone carried amusement rather than judgment. Still being myself, Carter corrected gently. As he ended the call, Carter reflected on how a moment of public humiliation had ultimately led to something profoundly meaningful. Not just industry reform or viral awareness, but a genuine reconnection with his father built on mutual respect rather than shared circumstances. The Liberty Air incident had stripped away his anonymity, but in doing so, it had given him something more valuable. A voice that carried weight, relationships that embraced honesty, and the confidence to occupy any space, first class or economy, as exactly who he was. If this story about courage, dignity, and standing up for what's right moved you, subscribe to Life-Changing Tales for more powerful stories that will change how you see the world. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of how they look. Comment below with where you're watching from and whether you've ever been judged unfairly based on your appearance. And share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that true worth isn't measured by outward appearances. Remember, one person standing up for what's right can transform not just a moment, but an entire industry. See you in our next life-changing story.